All right. Hello, everyone. It's Nancy Rebecca, and this is another interview today where I am interviewing psychic Rebecca Teeter. And a few months ago, Spirit came to me and asked me to do these interviews so that you can just see that having psychic intuitive ability is a very natural ability that we all have. We all have them at different degrees. Some of us choose to cultivate and grow those abilities more, embody them more. 25 years ago, when I had my out-of-body experience, I continued to have out-of-body experiences for over 30 days. It had come to a point where I was really losing a lot of sleep. I was very stressed. I was actually quite frightened because I could see energy fields and I didn't know what was happening. And so I don't know if any of you remember phone books, but I actually pulled out a phone book to look up psychic because a friend said, hey, maybe you need to go see a psychic. I looked it up in the Yellow Pages. There were only 3 listings of psychics in the Yellow Pages, and the first 2 thought I was crazy. So just to kind of give you an example of what the world was like 25 years ago. But today I was doing a little bit of search and I put in the search engine under Google, how many psychics are in the country of the United States alone? And the number that came up was 26,500,000 just in the United States alone. So then I got even more curious and I said, how many psychologists are also psychics that work with their abilities? And the number that came up was 4,340,000. And these are only the ones that advertise. So 4 million that are psychologists and psychics at the same time. Then I looked up psychic body workers because I knew I was going to be working with Rebecca today. And I know that's part of her background. And it was 5,080,000. And then I thought, all right, physicians. How many psychic physicians are out and proud, out in the public, are actually advertising their services in the United States? And this blew my mind. 4,700,000. So when I say that we are awakening at a global level, at that intuitive level, and when I use the word psychic, that means the breath of the soul, that we use the breath of our soul to communicate with each other, to get intuitive information. There's a lot of people waking up to their skill and ability. So anyway, let me get right to it. I want to introduce you to Rebecca Teeter. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me today. And you have so many hats that you can wear, and it's been so much fun watching you pull all those bits together. So please share with us your name, where you're from, and all the skill and ability that you bring to the table in your sessions with your clients.
Thank you for having me, Nancy. I'm actually really excited to be here because I think I'm one of the most normal people that you will meet. So I think it's great to have this opportunity to be able to talk to some of us who do have this side, but we are also just in the world. Mm-hmm. I have been a body worker for about 15 years. I did close my practice this last year. And I also am a somatic practitioner in the Feldenkrais method, if anyone knows what that is. I've done that.
What does that somatic mean? A somatic practitioner?
Somatic is of the body. So in the Feldenkrais method, for example, it's not really a body work modality, but we use the body as a tool to learn about yourself and to improve behavior and those kinds of things.
Thank you.
So from that, I've actually now become a neurolinguistic programming coach, and I'm a hypnotherapist. Wow. And I do a process called timeline therapy. And of course, I do some psychic work. I do some readings.
Nice, nice.
I thought it was really interesting that you brought up about the psychologists and the body workers, because that was how the story of I got into massage. I'd always been interested in people and how they work and psychology. And I was in college studying computer science, and I got really frustrated.
Wow, that's really different.
It's very different. I went into the library and I was kind of talking to the books about how difficult the experience was and wandering the aisles. And this book like lit up on the shelf, and I pulled it out, and I was upset because I thought, I'm not going to study psychology. And it was in that section, and it was the book Touch by Tiffany Field, who's a big researcher in the effect of touch on human and development.
Wow.
Then I became a massage therapist. So.
Wow. Wow. So did you know that you were you always sensitive? Because I mean, who talks to books, really? Of course, there's probably going to be a lot of people watching this video that's like, I talk to books, you know, but you know, that's interesting. And like, do the books talk back? Like, you know, we flip to a page, you know, I imagine, you know, how does that work? And whatever made you think you could talk to books? Like, did you do this as a kid, or I'm totally intrigued.
Well, yeah, I had known for a long time, like I can walk into a bookstore and the books I need to read will like light up on the shelf, or they'll just suddenly appear more prominent. So I've done that for a long, and you can, there's actually a thing called Bible dipping, where people will take Bibles and they will ask a question and open the pages, and they will read the first passage that they see, and that's the answer that they get. And I've done that with friends, but we tend to not use Bibles. We tend to use other books, but
Yeah.
I've done that for a long time.
Oh, wow. Wow. Bible dipping?
Bible dipping.
Oh my, so that's a thing. Okay.
That's a thing.
That's cool. I mean, I definitely know when I read a book, it will speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that when I was cultivating my abilities, it was probably about 8 years I didn't touch a book because I just wanted to try to change my habits and get used to just hearing from myself. But I definitely know when I read books now, it does feel like things will jump off the page at me. It's like, okay, pay attention to this. So as a child, were you sensitive?
So I think I'm the absolute most normal person ever. And I think that the abilities that I have are just the same as my hearing ability or my sight ability in the world. It's just like, you know, having a right and left hand. It's not any different for me. So I don't have a big awakening story. And I also like, I don't have this story where I realized that I was different than other people. It's hard for me to imagine that people don't feel in the world the same way that I do.
Mm-hmm. So as a child, then it was pretty just normal, and no one ever told you that it wasn't normal.
Well, I'm a feeler. So when I was a child, I was just called sensitive and overly emotional. And
Okay.
it was treated more like I wasn't okay, or I was too much sometimes. So I grew up kind of thinking, oh, this wasn't the right way to be, but I also, it just was who I was.
You weren't going to be able to disconnect from it.
No.
No, no. So have you always been public about your abilities, or do you tend to keep them private?
I think I'm pretty authentic. So I believe that I am who I am in the world. However, I don't think people always receive what's available. And so I'm not really sure how many people are aware of what I can do or don't do, or how I perceive the world, certainly.
Mm-hmm. So when you, so you started doing body work, you said about 15 years ago, correct? Yeah. And so where do you live, and what kind of community do you live in? And when you were doing body work, did you just stick strictly to body work, or did you share a little bit more about your abilities?
I live in a town called Aberdeen, Washington. It's on the coast. I think of this town as being a little polarized. We have people that are very conservative, and we also have people who live very alternative lifestyles and are into magic and those kinds of things. So it's a mix, and you can't always know who you're around at what time. I spent my first several years of body work actually working for an occupational therapist, and we did hands-on work that focused on myofascial pain. And it was really nice because the person that I worked for had also studied some of the body-mind connection. And so we could have conversations about that. And that's actually, I got really curious about when there is disease or there is discomfort, like where's the best place for intervention for an individual? Is it on the physical level, or is it on the emotional
Oh, yeah.
level, or is it the spiritual, psychic, energetic level?
Yeah. Yeah. And have you found that it's different depending on the person, or?
Yeah. I think it probably is. I don't know if I have a definitive answer about that, but I do think it depends a lot on who that person is and what they're aware of. And I do have the idea that things do start on more subtle levels. And by the time they get to the physical, that's when something really needs your attention in a really kind of deep and desperate way. But that doesn't mean that that's not the best place for the intervention.
Yeah, as I'm listening to you talk, so for me personally, I had my own traumas in childhood, and I was very aware that I remember someone saying, maybe you should have a massage. You would love a massage. And I remember kind of being a little terrified of having a massage. And I remember I interviewed like 5 different massage therapists, so it's like, can you massage without me taking my clothes off? Like, what are my options here? And I started off really slowly that way. And now I realize I needed to do a lot of kind of that energy work, maybe having the healing off the body. And then now I love massages, and now I definitely can have the body work. So it's interesting to hear you kind of put it in that category. Huh, interesting. So what do you consider your gifts? So when I'm asking that question, I always kind of go to the 4 kind of main intuitive ways that people understand, whether you're empathic, you're that clairsentient, you're clairaudient, meaning you can hear guides and angels speak to kind of guide you. You're clairvoyant like me, I can see energy fields, or claircognizant. So what would you say are your abilities that you bring to the table? How do you read your environment predominantly?
It's definitely clairsentient to me. I do not take on the term empath, though. I make a division between being empathic and being able to feel energy. I do, however, sometimes see energy, like the books will light up. I don't usually walk throughout my day and be able to just see everybody's aura, but it does come up in readings. I can hear. I do get a lot of messages. Occasionally, they're actually very auditory. Most of the time, they're more inside my head. But everything has a different voice, so I know it's not all me. And I think underneath it all, there's a lot of knowingness. There just are times when I just really know something.
So I'm curious, I want to hear a little bit more about, because I will say, because as a psychic teacher, especially last year, my group that was in the psychic mastery, which we had 18 people, and I will say about 16 of them were predominantly clairsentient feelers. And I am not predominantly that way. However, I am sensitive to energies. And so how do you define that? I'm curious to hear. An empath. You said you don't tend to use that term for yourself.
I don't, because when I've talked to people who really identify with that term, they usually talk about experiencing other people's emotions. And I don't have that. I am a very emotional person, and I have a lot of my own emotions, but I found that what I'm really reacting to are shifts in other people's fields that I can feel. Or like words will have weight to me in my field. And if I can't see anything, hear anything, know anything, and I'm trying to look at something, I can feel the weight of it, or I can feel how much water it has in it, or how vital it is. And it's a real palpatory experience.
Okay.
Which you think would have made me a really good massage therapist.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing that when I was working on someone's body, I didn't get a lot of intuitive information.
Interesting. Because I would describe every way that you said that, I would describe the same way. It's like, ooh, this is going to be big. Like I can feel the weight of the energy around it, or I can feel the weight of someone's aura standing next to me, or the lightness of that. But no, emotionally, I can have no clue if they have a smile on their face and they are really going through a huge grief process. I would never know it if they didn't literally tell me. Now, if I'm psychically tuned in and I'm doing a reading, then I would be able to see it in forms of colors. But I would say, yeah, I'm quite, there is a term for it. I don't remember the term right now. It's not empathic in that way, but there is another term for that. But anyway, it's cool to hear that. So you said as a child, you just always had these abilities, that it's just it's like having a right arm and a left arm. It's like breathe in, breathe out. It's like, walking or dancing or playing or anything like that. It's just your abilities are very innate and natural to who you are. So I'm going to assume that you never shut them off. Am I making that correct assumption? And could you talk a little bit more about that?
So I call it willful ignorance. I don't think they ever shut off, but I can definitely not be aware. And that has its own consequences at times. But I don't like usually walk through the world and just know random things about people. It can happen occasionally, but there's a different state that I drop into sometimes when even when I'm talking with a friend, and I'll just become aware that I need to pay more attention, and I can feel myself shift. There's just things that happen in my field, and then my awareness of my abilities opens up.
Yeah, for me, I have to intentionally and purposefully, I don't shut it off, but I do kind of let my spirit know I'm walking with a friend. We're going to go have lunch. I want to walk like a normal person. I want to have lunch with a friend as a normal person. I don't want any spirits coming up and talking to me. I don't want to see any of their aura. I just want to be normal. And I have to specifically go through those steps. And if I forget, then yeah, I get a little caught off guard. But I love that willful ignorance. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask, because a lot of people have misconceptions about psychic. So I talked about the Greek root word just means the breath of your soul. The breath of my soul is engaging with the breath of your soul at this moment in time as we're doing this interview. And in that, there is a heightened state of spiritual, sacred awareness that is exchanged. Like I can feel your heart and my heart are really jiving, right now. And, I can feel that connection. So that's kind of that psychic connection. But what is a big misconception that you see that people have, or maybe even you had, about psychics?
I think it's that we know everything.
Oh, yeah.
Or that we can just anticipate things.
Yeah.
I had gotten a really strong message that I wasn't going to see hands-on clients past my last birthday. And I really thought that meant that I was going to develop other parts of my business, that I wasn't going to need to see clients anymore. And then I found myself on my birthday writing a note to all my clients saying, I'm closing down because of COVID. And I had no idea that COVID was going to happen. I mean, I know we're going through a lot of changes, but I didn't have a clue about that. So I think it's sort of that idea. We don't know everything. We don't have all the details about each and every incident.
Yes.
Just, I think, have a different way of experiencing the world that can give us some of the underlying wisdom that if you're not aware of it, we might not otherwise realize.
Yeah, exactly. I was saying the other day, I was doing a reading a couple of weeks ago, and two spirits, young spirits, probably in their 20s, came through with side by side with a particular client. And all I could see was like lights flickering, like almost like short circuiting out, or your internet's going in and out. Lights are flickering because there's a thunderstorm kind of thing. So I tell people, just because I could see that does not mean that I knew what was happening. I could only describe a little bit, and it was actually the client that was able to fill in the blanks for me. So absolutely, just because you can see, and it can be overwhelming when you're picking up stuff, but you don't know, you're not connecting the dots. It's a lot of times we're not supposed to connect the dots. And that's another thing that people don't know, that discerning piece, and just being connected to the great mystery and being okay when things remain a mystery. Yeah. Yeah. So if someone would love to reach out, and I can tell you everybody I've been interviewing, they have had people reach out. And so you did say that you are doing readings, but can you tell me a little bit more about your website, and then if someone contacted you, what's kind of your ideal client that you like to work with, and in what ways? Can you describe a little bit about how you would work with them?
Sure. I offer some different services. I am a coach and a hypnotherapist, as well as doing this intuitive work. When someone reaches out and they want a reading, I actually, I don't do my readings live with the person. I do like to talk to them ahead of time. I like to hear what's going on and what they're curious about. And I do offer a follow-up for questions. But when I do my readings, I do them unattended and at a distance.
So not on Zoom.
I don't do them on Zoom, though.
Okay. Okay.
Not at this time. That could always change. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just prefer it that way. I feel like there's a little less. I can connect deeply with someone even when I'm not in the room with them, even when I'm not looking at them. I don't really need that to do the work. And I just find that it's almost like I can relax into my work a little bit better. And I feel like the readings that I do are improved that way. And then someone isn't sitting there for the length of the reading, not speaking and just watching me while I have my eyes closed.
Yeah, well, and I imagine being empathic, sensitive in that way to energies, that it does give you that little bit of distance.
I mean, I have people that I know in other states and other countries, and I can sometimes experience something that's going on and know, oh, it's time to reach out and find out. So it's just not necessary for me to be one-on-one.
Right. When you just said that, I was thinking, so I had been diagnosed with breast cancer last year and went through chemotherapy and radiation. And I had never, my nature can be quite a worrier. I used to worry a lot about anything, but anyway, I was going through chemotherapy and I had this full-blown panic attack. I was sitting by myself and I was like, oh my God, I think this is a panic attack, where you're just terrified. And the next thing you know, my phone rings and it's my friend, Kim Sear from back east. What the heck is going on with you? I just felt this wave of total fear and panic roll through my house. Get it together here. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel panicky. I can't turn it around. She goes, okay, I'll help you with this. And I had laughed because she's across the United States, and it was in the evening on my own. I hadn't talked to anybody, but she's that sensitive that she could feel it. So is that what you're talking about?
Right as we were starting, I have a friend in California who texted me like right at the beginning, and I haven't heard from this person. This person hasn't reached out to me in a while. And I'm like, well, they're feeling something, because I'm a little nervous. I might be coming out a little bit more on this video than I have previously. So
yeah. Oh my God. I just love this work. And I have really loved my time with you. And so the name of your website is?
It's my name. It's RebeccaTeeter.com.
Okay, I will include the link down below. And is there anything else, Rebecca, that you really wanted to say, to share before we close up this interview?
Yeah, I just think it's really important that we have places where we can talk about this. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come out here and speak with you about it and tell a little bit about my story, because like growing up and having experiences where you can feel things, and that's not necessarily thought of as a strength.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little challenging, and that leaves impact. And so I think the more that we hear about the different possibilities about how people experience the world, I think the better.
Absolutely. Well, definitely spirit. When spirit said, look, we want people to just see that it's normal. You can have a normal life, and you can have intuitive and psychic ability and never do readings and private sessions and things like that. You just can have enjoyment out of just another set of tools in your toolbox to just navigate life, because life is just tough right now for a lot of people. So thank you again so much, Rebecca, for being willing to kind of come out of the closet, the psychic closet, a little bit more. And I know that people are really going to love this interview. And I appreciate you so much. So thank you so much. All right, take care. Let's see.